Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics video on the channel. It is Thursday and time for some captains ahead of round 20. So our captains last week unfortunately weren't as good as what they probably could have been. Quite disappointed with the top 5 last week from what we had. So we did have Brody Grundy at 1 for 129, but then Dawson 88, Goulden 86, Whitfield 109 and a Baz 70. So not great from last week, but still 12th overall for the season in Captain's Challenge. So hopefully we can have a good end to the year and finish inside the top 10 and pick some good captains for you. So let's get stuck into the top 10 as we always do. And starting off at the number 1 spot is Nick Dayos against Richmond on Sunday at the MCG. So Richmond have been a good matchup for midfielders still. You'd think it would have gotten easier as the season gone on, but it's got slightly more difficult sort of. But they're still a positive matchup, right? They're still giving up plus 6.4 points to mid. So only West Coast, Essendon and Carlton are giving up more points to inside mids over the last 5 weeks. So it's still a great matchup, right, for Nick Dayos. And he's been in really, really good form. 162 last week against Freo was a massive score. I believe that was a career high for him. Before that was a 78 with an early ankle injury against Giants. But then Gold Coast, then 132, 137 before that. So been in really good form, and if he goes over a ton, generally this year he's going 120 plus. So I'm looking here. I don't think that is it. There's no ton. Yeah, there's only 1 ton here where he's gone below 120 when he's tonned up, which was actually against St Kilda when he got the Windhager tab. But every time he's gone 100 plus, he goes 120. So he puts up ceiling scores when he does. And I think Richmond's going to be another game where he's going to do that 128 against Richmond last year and then 183 before that. But obviously he's gotten, Nate Douglas, a lot better fantasy player now than what he was. But yeah, 128 last year. Jack Ross, I expect to go to him throughout the game, but I'm just not sure he'll be able to go with a guy like Nick Dayos. We know Collingwood do everything that they can to get Nick the ball, and if he's getting tagged, they'll help him out. So I think Nick Dayos will put up a good score against the Tigers on Sunday. Coming in at number 2 is Brody Grundy against GWS on the Friday night. Battle of the Bridge, this one here. And Giants are still a great matchup for Rucks. Plus 5 points there, and they're a bright green matchup still for Rucks. Grundy against Briggs. He scored a 60 against Giants early this year, which was a little bit surprising when I saw, obviously based in the form that he's been in this year. Obviously, that was quite early in the year when he wasn't in great form, but he scored a 122 and a 134 in his 2 previous games against the Giants while at Sydney. So he's got some good recent history against them besides the game earlier in the year, but he's really up high on the list. Obviously, it's a great matchup, but his form has been incredible. So obviously he's tonned up in his last 10 games, and I think it's 2, 4, 6. 7 of his last 8 have been over 120, including 129, 126 in his last 2 games. So he's been getting it done with 120 plus scores. And again, I think he's a really good VC option on the Friday night. Obviously, he's been in great form, and I expect him to go well once again. So I've got him at my number 2 position. Now, the number 3 position might be slightly, not controversial, but someone that hasn't been in good form at all. Like Dayos and Grundy have both been in form. This guy in his last 3 has not been in form, and that's Bailey Smith. He's been pretty bad over the last 3 weeks. As a forward, he hasn't actually been as bad because forwards are just bad, but his last 3, he's gone at 94, 98, and 70. So not great. Brisbane, Giants, and St Kilda are the 3 matchups. So they are red matchup. Well, Brisbane's red, Giants is neutral, St Kilda's is, I believe it is red. Yeah, they haven't been given. Yeah, it's a red matchup. They haven't been given. They're better for outside mids, but inside mids is still a red matchup. Only Sydney and Geelong are giving up less points to midfielders than what St Kilda are. So I can understand why his scores have been down as well. But obviously, when we've got a guy averaging over 120 for the year and he's put up 3 scores under that in a row, we're slightly concerned. But he's got North Melbourne. It is a great matchup for midfielders. They're 4th best for giving up points to 4th best, 5th best. Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6th best, sorry. I should say 6. But those 6 teams are all bright green and very close with one another. But North still giving up plenty of points. And look what Isaac Heaney did to North last week, right, with 166. I'm not expecting Baz to kick 5 goals. But if he can get plenty of the ball, plenty of marks, plenty of tackles, I think he's going to get back into some form in this game. So I'm backing in the matchup, and I'm backing in the player in Baz who's been really, really good all year. Like, we just have to go back to his run from round 7 to round 14, where he went 132, 119, 149, 123, 126, 147, 136. And he dines out when it comes to easy matchups like West Coast and Essendon, which were the last two, the 147, 136. I'm expecting a score, a big score this week. I'm expecting Baz to hit back to some good form. So he is currently my number 3 option for the week. Going in number 4, I've got a couple of dogs at 4 and 5 here. So we're going to start off with Marcus Bontempelli coming in at number 4. So his record isn't great against Essendon in recent history. So 101, 53, 128, 84, 97. But this is a different Essendon team to what he's played. Obviously, Essendon are very depleted at the moment with a lot of injuries. They're giving up plus 7.5 points to midfielders. That is only behind West Coast. Only behind West Coast. It's the second easiest matchup for inside mids over the last 5 weeks. They're giving up plenty of points, and I do expect the Bont to have a big day here. Obviously, there's the chance that he does rest forward if they're up by a lot, but I could just see Bont kicking a few goals if he goes forward with how depleted Essendon are. He's in good form as well. 4 of his last 5 been over a ton. 3 of those scores have been over 120. There was the 120 against Richmond, 133 against North, and 166 against the Crows. So showing that he can put up some big scores regardless of the matchup, because Crows are difficult, and that was his highest score. And then obviously Richmond and North giving up plenty of points. So I'm expecting the Bont to feast in this matchup under the roof against the Bombers on Friday night. And his teammate coming in at number 5 is Tim English, rounding out my top 5. So again, his recent history against the Bombers isn't great either. 102, 68, and 98. But again, if you look at the matchup over the last 5 weeks, Essendon are one of the best matchups for rucks. They're giving up plus 16.8 points to rucks there. Only Freo are giving up more points over the last 5 weeks to rucks than Essendon. Essendon are actually easier now than St Kilda over the last 5 weeks as well. So giving up plenty of points. I'm not sure if it's going to be a Vicentini or Goldstein playing against English on Friday night, but I think regardless of the matchup, English is going to get his hit outs. He's going to get the ball around the ground. He might even kick a few goals like he does when he sneaks forward. He just does it all. English is a great option. I know a lot of people are trading him potentially in this week as a ruck. I like him as a captain option as well, so you might be able to chuck the VC in on him on debut, or if you just got him, I like him as an option this week. So I've got Tim English as my number 5 option, and also along with that, he's just been, again, super consistent. He averaging 108.7 for the year, and I think he's only gone below the ton once since their bye, which was against Grundy, which has been the hardest matchup across every position since the mid-season bye as well. So I expect a good score, and all those scores, funny enough, have been over 115, bar 2, which was a game against Grundy, and then the 102 against Brisbane last week, which is a trickier matchup. So I'm expecting a big score from English against the Bombers on Friday night. Moving to my 6 through 10. So I've got Andrew Brachaw at number 6 against West Coast. So obviously talked about it before, but they are now giving up the most points to inside mids over the last 5 weeks of any team. So they're giving up a lot more points to these midfielders. They're even giving up a fair bit to outside mids, plus 8 points, which is 4th behind St Kilda, funny enough, giving up more outside mid points, Adelaide and Carlton. So giving up plenty of points across the board, and we know Andrew Brachaw can get it done in a number of ways. Tackles, he's getting a few marks as well, at least. Not as many as what he was last year, but still getting plenty of points through tackles as well. 110, 115, 93, 101 and 90 in his last 5 against West Coast. So particularly those last two, 110, 115 is good to see. And I'm expecting him to have a good game. That game is Twilight as well on the Saturday, so could even be a VC option for you if you'd like to go there. At number 7, I've got Josh Dunkley. I was actually tossing Andrew Brachaw and Josh Dunkley at this spot at number 6, but I've decided for Brachaw because of the matchup, slightly more favourable. But Josh Dunkley still a great matchup against Gold Coast, and this game is expected to be a bit wet on that first game on the Saturday up in the Gold Coast. His last few scores against Gold Coast, 106, 128, 151, 137 and 125. He loves playing the Gold Coast Suns in his career. I believe if I get his career average up against Gold Coast, it's 115.4 in his 15 career games against them. So that is a massive average to have against one particular team. Just incredible. And his 3 of his last 4 as well, 124, 78, 137, 133. So 3 of those scores obviously very, very big. And if it's going to be wet, plenty of tackles are going to be up for Josh Dunkley. And when he's gone big in those games there, he has had 10, 13 and 15 tackles. And it hasn't required that many marks either to get to those scores as well. So I'm expecting a good score from Josh Dunkley. If it's going to be wet, even better. I think he's a really good VC share who has got a big ceiling on his day. I got Max Gawn at number 8, and it does feel quite low for him against the Saints. So we obviously know Saints are giving up plenty of points to rucks this season. They're giving up plus 15.6 over the last 5 weeks, which only Freo and Essendon are giving up more points, and they're not giving up that much more. So still a great matchup for rucks, and I'm expecting Gawn to have a big score here. 107, 152 in his last 2 against St Kilda. And yeah, he's obviously hasn't been as good since the mid-season bye. 89, 89, 88, 102. But in those 3 80 scores were the 3 hardest matchup outside of Melbourne for rucks. Gold Coast, Adelaide, North Melbourne. And then 102 against Carlton in a trickier matchup. And that was a low-scoring fantasy game as well. He now, as I said, got the Saints. Great matchup. I'm expecting Gawn to have a good day against St Kilda in the final game of the round. Is a good captain shout. And probably 8 is quite low. But there are so many good options this week. Unfortunately, I had to make an order, and Gawn, unfortunately, slipped a little bit down the list. But I still do like him as an option. At 9, I've got Jack Steele. He's been really, really good last 3 weeks. He's just, again, very much like Dunkley, just getting those tackles and getting up these big scores and reminding us that he's still got that 110 plus capability in terms of an average. 119, 136 and 130 in his last 3 games. And he's had 14, 13 and 15 tackles. But more importantly, to go with that, he's marking the ball as well. So he's had 6, 8 and 5 marks in his last 3, which is really, really good to see. He had that 2-week stretch in round 15 and 16 where he only scored a 66 against Collingwood and a 93 against Freo, which both those teams aren't really giving up many points for midfielders. They have been quite tough, both those teams, across the year. Even before that, those 2 bad games, though, he went 105, 105, 126, 105, 109, 113. It's been quite consistent since round 8, bar that 2-game stretch in rounds 15 and 16. So his form is going a lot further back than the 3 weeks. I'm expecting a good score against Melbourne, who have been still a decent enough matchup for inside mids. They aren't as good over the last 5 weeks. They're pretty much a neutral matchup, but overall for the season, they are still giving up points. So I do like Jack Steele this week, potentially as a captain option in the final game if you wanted to go there. And then rounding out my top 10 is Max Holmes against North Melbourne. Pretty much everything I said about Baz is applicable, obviously, for Max Holmes. So they played in the same team and they've got North Melbourne. Again, he's been really, really good this year, Max Holmes. And when he goes over a ton, he's a bit like Nick Dayos. He normally goes over 115, 120. So since he scored an 83 against Port Adelaide in round 10, he's gone 117, 108, 146, 131, 71 against Brisbane, 122, 80 against Giants, and then a 121. So those 2 scores in rounds 15 and 18 aren't great, but outside that, he's pretty much going over 117 in every other game. So really getting it done, Max Holmes, and this is a matchup, again, under the roof at Marvel. I could expect him getting a pretty good score. So he does round out my top 10. So those 10 options, I do like a lot of those this week. If you've got any 2 of those, I think you'll be pretty happy with getting a couple of those guys. Let's go through a couple of names here I didn't put in the list. So the big one I don't have in here is Nasai Wanganeen-Miller, and I feel sort of yuck not putting him in the top 10, really, because he's, again, second highest averaging player for the year, averaging 111.4. He scored the most points of any player this season, obviously because Baz has missed a few games. And his form has been ridiculous since the mid-season bye. 128, 125, 109, 145, 73 and 151 against Geelong. I just think he's going to get the Ed Langdon tag against Melbourne. And Ed Langdon is a lot like a James Jordan in terms of a tagger. So I just don't know if Nasai's going to put up an amazing score. I could see it being a bit like the Nick Dacos game for Nasai. But Nasai's so good and he's so quick that I think he's still going to get to an okay score. I just don't think I don't like putting a captaincy on someone I do expect to get a tag. So that's the only reason he's not in my top 10. Everything in terms of the matchup as well. I'm looking at Melbourne, so rebounding halfbacks, they're a tough matchup over the last 5 weeks, and midfielders if he's playing mid, which is what he's probably likely to do. They're still a neutral matchup, as I said, with Jack Steele. So he could still get to a good score, and if you want to go into Siren Miller, I probably couldn't talk you out of it because of his form. He just doesn't make the top 10 just because of that tag flag. But the next 3 weeks, though, you better believe he's going to be in the top 10, probably going to be in the top 5 every single week. So this is probably the last week I'm not going to have Nasiah in my top captains for the week. Caleb Sarong was probably number 11. He was really unlucky to miss out on the top 10. Obviously, West Coast, great matchup, as I mentioned. He loves playing West Coast. He's won how many Glendale Allen medals as well. I think I just had the other guys ahead of him this week because I know Sarong has put up some good scores this year. Like against the Dogs, he went 121. Against North Melbourne, 146. Bombers, 137. And then Collingwood, 123. But I guess he doesn't have as more of a consistent ceiling as these other guys. And against West Coast, they sent a Brady Hoff to him for the game because of how well Sarong's played against West Coast. I don't know. Very unlucky to not make the top 8, top 10. But the other 10 guys there, I do really like this week. So Sarong would be number 11. So a very unlucky and honourable mention to Sarong, who would be my number 11 option this week. Luke Jackson, just not a captain option for me. I know he could go quite well against West Coast, kick a few goals. He's still got a good role. Obviously, Hayden Young being back in the team now, whether he's sub or not, will probably start eating a little bit into Jackson's mid-time. And his last 3 games, 89, 87, 83. He's just getting 80s at the moment. He's just a good player to have in our fantasy teams, but not a captain option for me personally. Isaac Heaney obviously dominated last week with a 166. I can't see GOS letting Heaney with as much room as what they did on the weekend. Like Heaney was just given so much room against North Melbourne. It was pretty ridiculous, to be fair. One of the best games I've seen an individual play. Definitely best game I've seen an individual play all season. And one of the best I've seen for quite a while as well. He was just absolutely dominant there. Scored an 86 against GOS earlier this year as well. So I just, don't love the matchup. Along with Jordan Dawson, I'm just steering clear of the showdown. I don't love putting anyone captain in the showdown. I just think it's always a pretty tough game to read in terms of tags and who's going to go really well. I think Dawson's still going to go well, but he is going to have Miles Bergman paying him a little bit of attention throughout this game here as well. Scored a 78 against Port Adelaide earlier this year, which I believe was his lowest score. Yeah, it was his lowest score of the season. His only score below 85. Yeah, only score below 85 this year was that game against Port Adelaide. I think he'll still get to a solid enough score. Just not a captain option for me this week with a Bergman tag there. Ed Richards could be a smoky this week against the Bombers. I think Bombers will leak points on Friday night. I think the Dogs will really cash in with a lot of their players. So Ed Richards could be a bit of a shout there. Along with maybe Bailey Dale. He was an unlucky one not to make the list. The only reason I didn't put him in the list is I just have a feeling that if you look at the Bombers, Bailey Dale had, 49 disposals against them last time, 154. Eston are going to know that. I think Guelphy's going to go to him. I said that about him last week with Whitfield. He went to him a little bit, but didn't really go to him as much. I think Guelphy will go to Dale this week and will tag him quite well. So that's the only reason I don't have him inside the top 10. You could put a VC on him because it is a great matchup for rebounding defenders against the Bombers. They're giving up plus 21.9 points on average, which is just amazing in terms of a matchup. I believe that is the best matchup across all of fantasy over the last 5 weeks is rebounding defenders against the Bombers. So, I do like the matchup. I just think he might get tagged. Josh Dacos, I think, is going to have a good game this week against Richmond. So, for rebound defenders, Richmond will be giving up, obviously, plenty of points for defenders and plenty of points for midfielders as well. I think I just didn't put him there just because he doesn't hit that ceiling as much. I think he's had 2 scores over 120 this year, including one with an 80-point last quarter. So, probably not captain option, but I think he'll have a good game. Sam Darcy could be a bit of a unique VC. Could see him kicking 6 or 7 and scoring a 120, 130. So if you want to be really rogue, you could go him VC there. And I don't really love any of the other options here. Like Darcy Cameron, I actually don't hate as a captain option on the run home. Matt Rowell as well could get plenty of tackles against Brisbane in the wet, so he could be a bit of a shout there as well. Marshall, not against Gawn this week, and with Max Heath and the team just taking off his ceiling, unfortunately. And that's pretty much about it. So that's our top 10 captains for the week. In terms of my captains for this week that I'll be doing, at this stage I'm going Brody Grundy VC into Nick Dacos, going my number 2 into number 1. I have looked at Bailey Smith as maybe VC into a Nick Dacos. or maybe if I hear something about Nick Dayos getting a definite tag from Richmond and they're going to just do everything they can to stop him, maybe I go Baz captain. But I think it'd be Grundy into Nick Dayos as well. Yeah, pretty happy with that. So let me know in the comments below, guys, who you guys are going with your captain and vice captain for round 20. Be interested to see who you guys are going with your VCs and Cs in round 20. And if you do want a guaranteed answer to any of your AFL fantasy questions, including any captain questions, trade questions, or you want a full team review, head to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Only a month to go of the season, or 5 weeks. So if you want to sign up for last month, see what the Patreon's about, or if you just want to maybe just sort of shout us a month to Patreon, and maybe it's a thanks for all the content we've had throughout the year, then feel free. Link is in the description below. Yeah, appreciate everyone that has done that so far. Make sure you do smash a big thumbs up on the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. I believe we did pass 4,100 subscribers, so we are closing in on the 5K marker. We're still 900 away, so if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. We've still got content daily for the remainder of the season, plus AFLW fantasy content will be kicking off within the next week. I'll be back later on tonight for another watch-along, as always, for Sam Doherty, one of the fantasy community and just broader AFL community's favourite players in his final game tonight. So looking forward to that one. So if you want to join me along for that, for the watch-along, I'll be live tonight. There, I think it'll be 7:15 Eastern when I'll be live for that ahead of the game. And then pre-lockout chat tomorrow night, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. per time, answering all of your AFL fantasy questions ahead of Friday night footy. So thanks, everyone. Good luck with your captains this week. Hopefully they can smash at a good score. Hopefully it's your VC, but if not, hopefully your captain can put out a good score. And yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night. See ya.